April 12, 1975. Maria Lucchese Brennan sat in her late father's study, boxes everywhere, 20 years of documents, business records, personal letters. The estate lawyer had said, "Take what you want, the rest gets shredded." Maria was 36 now, married, 2 kids, a normal life in Connecticut, far from her father's world. She'd spent 2 decades trying to forget she was Tommy Lucchese's daughter, trying to be just Maria. But here she was, sorting through his past. And then she found it. A leather folder, hidden in the back of his desk drawer. Locked. She broke the lock with a letter opener. Inside were 3 pages, handwritten notes, her father's handwriting. The first page was dated November 4th, 1955. It started with one sentence that made her blood run cold. Bumpy Johnson knows where Maria goes to school. This is the story of the girl who never knew she was the reason for peace, and what happened when she finally learned the truth. Maria didn't remember much about November 1955. She was 16 then, a junior at Sacred Heart Academy. Her life was simple: school, music lessons, friends. She knew her father was involved in business, something vague, something she wasn't supposed to ask about. Her mother had trained her well. Don't ask, don't tell, don't know. It was safer that way. But she'd never felt unsafe, never felt watched, never knew that her Friday afternoon piano lessons were documented by a cab driver named Marcus, never knew that her route to school was mapped, never knew that her entire routine was filed away in a barbershop in Harlem, never knew she was leverage. The folder contained her father's private notes, not business records, personal reflections. Maria read slowly, her hands shaking. November 4th, 1955. Bumpy Johnson knows where Maria goes to school. He said it in front of 20 men. I apologized immediately, felt like a coward. But what choice did I have? He was telling me he'd been watching my daughter, my only child, the one pure thing in my life. I wanted to kill him, wanted to send 50 men to Harlem, wanted war. But Frank Costello stopped me, said he didn't threaten her, he just proved he knows things, and if you react with violence, you prove he needs to use that information. Frank was right. I hate that he was right. Maria's heart was pounding. Someone had been watching her. Some gangster from Harlem had been documenting her movements. She felt violated, angry, scared retroactively for a threat she never knew existed. She kept reading. November 10th, 1955. Met with Bumpy Johnson privately, needed to understand, asked him directly, "Were you planning to hurt my daughter?" He looked me in the eye and said, "Never. I would never harm a child. But I needed you to understand that everyone has vulnerabilities. Everyone has something they can't protect completely." I was reminding you of that, not threatening you with it, I asked. "So it was a bluff?" He smiled, said, "It was information. What you chose to imagine I might do with that information. That was on you." The bastard was right. He never actually threatened Maria. I just assumed he would, and that assumption was more powerful than any real threat. Maria set the page down, walked to the window, tried to process. Her father had been in some kind of standoff with a man named Bumpy Johnson, and she had been the leverage. But according to this, Bumpy never intended to hurt her. He just wanted her father to know he could. The distinction felt important, but she wasn't sure why. She picked up the second page. December, 1955. Changed Maria's school schedule. Different routes, different times, never predictable. I know Bumpy said he wouldn't hurt her, but I can't risk it. Catherine thinks I'm being paranoid. Maybe I am. But every time I see Maria walk out that door, I think about Bumpy Johnson sitting in some Harlem office with a file that has her name on it. And I hate him, but I also respect him, because he outthought me. He spent years preparing, and I never saw it coming. The notes continued through 1956, 1957, 1958, her father documenting his paranoia, his changed behavior, his new protocols. Maria realized something. Her father had never been the same after November 1955. She'd noticed it at the time. How he started asking about her day, asking specific questions. Where did you go? Who did you see? What route did the bus take? She'd thought he was being overprotective, controlling. She'd fought with him about it, told him she was 16, not 6, demanded privacy, and he'd backed off eventually. But the worry never left his eyes, Now she understood why. March 1960. Maria graduates high school in 3 months. She wants to go to college in California. Part of me wants to say no, keep her close, where I can protect her. But Frank reminded me, Tommy, Bumpy proved his point 5 years ago. He's not watching her anymore. He probably never was after that first week. The threat was the knowledge, not ongoing surveillance. I want to believe that. I need to believe that, because I can't control her life forever. She deserves to be free, even if I never will be. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Her father had let her go to UCLA in 1960. She'd thought he was being generous, understanding. Now she realized it was an act of faith, of trust in a man he'd once considered an enemy. The final page was dated October 1967, 2 months before her father died. Bumpy Johnson died today. Heart attack at a restaurant in Harlem. The commission sent flowers. So did I. Catherine asked why I was sending flowers to a Harlem gangster. I told her because he taught me something important. She didn't understand. How could she? Maria is married now, has a daughter of her own, little Catherine, 3 years old. And I think about that night in 1955, about Bumpy saying he knew where Maria went to school. And I understand now what he was really saying. You love your daughter. I love my community. If you threaten mine, I remind you about yours, not to hurt, to prevent hurt, to establish balance. He was right. We left Harlem alone after that, and Harlem prospered, and Maria was safe, safer than if I'd gone to war. Bumpy Johnson was the smartest man I ever met. I hated him, respected him, feared him, and now he's gone, and I feel like I lost something, not a friend, but an equal. Someone who understood the game better than anyone. Maria sat in silence, processing. Her father had respected this man, this Bumpy Johnson, the man who'd used her as leverage. But had he used her? Or had he just mentioned her? The distinction kept coming back. She needed to know more. She spent the next week researching libraries, old newspapers, asking careful questions to people who knew Harlem history. And she learned about Bumpy Johnson, about his intelligence, his strategy, his code, about how he protected Harlem, how he never targeted families, how he operated with rules, principles. She learned that he died at Wells Restaurant in 1968, that 5,000 people came to his funeral, that he was beloved in his community. She found a retired reporter who'd covered Harlem in the 1960s, asked him about Bumpy. The reporter smiled. Bumpy Johnson was a gentleman. Dangerous, yes, but principled. I once asked him about families, about targeting kids. You know what he said? A man who hurts children isn't a man. He's a monster. And I've done a lot of things in my life, but I've never been a monster. I believed him. Everyone who knew him believed him, Maria asked. Did he ever actually hurt anyone's family? The reporter shook his head. Not that I ever heard. He gathered information, used it as insurance. But actual violence against innocents? Never. That wasn't his way. Maria returned to her father's study, read the notes again, with new context, and she saw something she'd missed. Her father hadn't written these notes out of fear. He'd written them out of respect, out of recognition that he'd been outplayed, and rather than deny it, he'd documented it, learned from it, changed because of it. The final entry, October 1967, included one more line she'd skipped the first time. I never told Maria about any of this. She doesn't need to know she was part of a gangster standoff. Let her live her normal life. Let her think her father was just a businessman. Let her be free from this world. That's what Bumpy wanted too. Not to hurt her, to protect his own, and by extension to protect her, because peace protected everyone. Maria made a decision. She drove to Harlem, found Wells Restaurant. It was still there, still operating. She walked in. An older black woman greeted her. Table for one, sweetheart. Maria hesitated. Actually, I'm looking for information about someone who used to come here. Bumpy Johnson? The woman's face softened. You knew Bumpy? Not exactly, Maria said. But he knew my father, I think. The woman gestured to a booth. Sit. I'll bring coffee. Her name was Hazel. She'd been a waitress at Wells for 40 years. I was here the night Bumpy died, she said. Right over there. Table by the window. Heart attack. Quick. Painless, I hope. Maria asked, what was he like? Hazel smiled. Complicated, kind, brilliant. He took care of people, really took care of them. When families couldn't pay rent, Bumpy paid it. When kids needed school supplies, Bumpy provided. When the police harassed our businesses, Bumpy made calls. He wasn't perfect, but he was ours, and he protected us. Maria took a breath. My father was Tommy Lucchese. Hazel's smile faded, not hostile, just careful. I see. I found some notes, Maria continued, from 1955, about an incident at the Copacabana, about Bumpy mentioning me, saying he knew where I went to school. Hazel nodded slowly. I heard about that. Bumpy talked about it once, said it was the moment he established boundaries with the Italian families. Said he hated using a kid's name. But it was the only language they'd understand. Did he ever actually watch me? Maria asked. Was someone following me to school? Hazel was quiet for a moment. Then, I can't say for sure, but I knew Marcus, the cab driver. Sweet man. He passed in 1970. Before he died, he told me something. Said, Bumpy had him watch your father, document his movements. But when it came to you, Marcus said Bumpy told him, if you ever see anything that suggests she's in danger from anyone, our people included, you tell me immediately. And if anyone in my organization ever suggests targeting her, you report them to me. Marcus said Bumpy wasn't watching you to threaten you. He was watching to make sure nobody else did either. Maria's throat tightened. He was protecting me? In his way, Hazel said. Bumpy believed in balance. Your father controlled territory. Bumpy controlled information. If your father's people threatened Harlem, Bumpy could threaten back. But he never wanted to. He just wanted mutual respect. And by knowing about you, by making sure you were safe, he was ensuring your father had reason to keep peace. It's complicated. But it worked. Harlem and your father's people coexisted for years after that. Maria wiped her eyes. I spent my whole life thinking my father was just a tough businessman. Now I find out he was involved in something that put me at risk, and the man who supposedly threatened me was actually protecting me. Hazel reached across the table, took Maria's hand. Your father loved you. That's what I hear in your story. And Bumpy respected that love. He used it, yes, but he also honored it. He could have hurt you, could have used you as a real threat. He didn't. He just reminded your father that everyone has something to lose, and losing should be avoided. That's wisdom, not cruelty. Maria stayed at Wells for 2 hours. Hazel shared stories about Bumpy's funeral, about the neighborhood he protected, about his legacy. When Maria finally left, she had a different understanding, not just of Bumpy Johnson, but of power, of strategy, of the complicated ways people protect what they love. She returned home to Connecticut, kept her father's notes, but added her own. April 1975. I learned today that I was part of something I never understood. A man I never met used my name to establish peace. My father feared him, respected him, learned from him. And in a strange way, Bumpy Johnson kept me safer than I knew. Because by making my father aware of my vulnerability, he made my father more careful, more strategic, less reckless. I'll never know if this is true. But I choose to believe that the man who could have threatened me chose instead to protect me, and that my father, despite his flaws, recognized the wisdom in that. This is my inheritance, not money, not property, but the knowledge that even in a dark world there are rules, there is honor, there is strategy that protects rather than destroys. Maria never told her children about this, about their grandfather's life, about Bumpy Johnson, about being leverage. She let them have their normal childhood, free from that world, just like her father wanted, just like Bumpy respected. And when she died in 2003, the leather folder was found among her things. Her daughter read the notes, all of them, including Maria's edition, and understood something about her mother, about the complicated legacy of protection, about how sometimes the people who seem dangerous are the ones establishing the rules that keep us safe. If this story moved you, subscribe. Drop a like if you understand that protection comes in unexpected forms. Share this with someone who needs to know that there are always multiple sides to every story. And in the comments, tell me, how would you feel discovering you were part of a story you never knew existed? More legendary tales coming next. Don't miss them.